you everyone for attending, choosing our breakout session on education and AI. I was asked to give this talk on the ways students in digital arts and digital design are using generative AI tools in their projects. And I thought that I should invite Tom because he's one of the students who use these tools extensively in their final year project. So let's start. So we have seen this kind of headlines a lot over the past months or 1 year now. Basically, the thesis is that AI will make students cheat on their assignments, ask generative AI to do their essays, and basically the whole education will be undermined. However, I think that what we want to show through this presentation is that there are ways to mitigate this, and also the fact that we are currently on the cusp of AI as maybe one of the most powerful positive changes in education as we know it. So I thought that it would be interesting to show a bit how our students in digital art show these kind of tools in their projects and how this develops some of their skills. So brainstorming and ideation, we all know, I guess, that finding new ideas is hard many times, and it's always depending on our experience and knowledge and on our imagination. And maybe students 20 years old, they are not so exposed to things. So many of them, or actually I couldn't say many of them because only two teams use this kind of tools in their ideation process. But the teams who use this made use of the information access that generative AI tools provide, also on the fact that it provides this cross-disciplinary insight and idea organization tips and so on. And what we observed was that these students who use these tools produced ideas that were more developed, more creative, and also the fact that students themselves seemed more knowledgeable about the topic. Now, I will ask Tom to talk about how he used generative AI tools as a storytelling tool in their project.
So obviously, the main reason I'm here today is I'm a recent graduate of the digital arts course. Now, for my final year project, which is a module that spans an entire term of university, I created a game. It was a storytelling experience, and so obviously, when it comes to storytelling, we can benefit from things like ChatGPT, which obviously have many applications, with creative writing being one of them. So when it comes to kind of making a game, one of the core elements is going to be the storytelling, and we relied quite heavily on ChatGPT for things like structure, kind of coming up with the kind of the foundation of the game, kind of informing all of the different creative decisions. So it was mostly kind of a tool for kind of idea generation, kind of generating the outlines when it came to ChatGPT. But then we also made use of AI image generators for things like coming up with what the game world would look like, in informing our level design and our character design, and then when it came to things like mock-ups as well.
So this is actually one of the aspects that Tom was talking about. Once you have an idea, once you have a story for your idea, then of course you need to develop some visual identity of that idea. And usually it's quite complicated. You either need to be very talented, or you need to juggle with a lot of tools for you to be able to to put your idea into something visual that you can then give to users to evaluate. And in some cases, they will just not like it. So then you need to go again and do this process. So this kind of tools that were used in this project, which was not Tom's project, was a different project, but also in Tom's project, were very useful in creating this visual library that could be easily circulated to users and obtain rapid feedback. And for instance, in this project, the students were trying to develop the story of a 8-year-old passionate about reading, who is spending a lot of time in his room, and they created all these mock-ups using Midjourney, and then they got some feedback, and then they decided to go forward with one of these models, which was this one, and to 3D model it and basically apply all the other skills they learned in this program. Coding assistance.
So in my case, obviously, for anyone who's tried their hand at game development, you'd know that programming is the backbone of any game. Without programming and coding, you're not going to be able to interact with the game world as the player. So obviously, the fact that coding plays such a big part of in game development, if you don't come from a computer science background, that's something quite daunting, and it can kind of hold you back from trying out this kind of exciting new area. So in our case, we approached our supervisor, Alex, and we proposed that we use ChatGPT as a programming assistant for things like writing code and debugging it as well. And so basically our workflow would be, we knew how to do quite basic things already, like make the character move, make the camera follow the character. But for more complex features like puzzles, that was obviously going to be a bit more of a challenge. So our workflow would be to ask ChatGPT to kind of break the problem down into steps, and then it would generate all of the necessary scripts and instructions. And where some people might be concerned with that, as obviously it opens up the opportunity to just take the code straight out of ChatGPT and put it into the application without really taking the time to understand the concepts behind it. But what came very in handy with ChatGPT is its ability to break down the code line by line, kind of explain some of the more challenging concepts to us, and that really did aid us in becoming more competent coders throughout the project.
I'm aware of the time, so I don't know how many minutes we have because we started a bit late, but yeah, so coding, of course, for non-computer science students was, and I think that also, seeing how ChatGPT comments and explain some of this code was beneficial for you to help in this learning process. And yet another area that was not extensively explored by our students, but there were some attempts in this, was data analysis. So once you have your game or whatever project you create, you gather feedback from your users, be it quantitative or qualitative, using AI tools in order to get some initial insights into the data, and that you can explore further in a deeper way. So before playing the video of that was actually done by Tom, explaining the process and how, and also giving you a glimpse into their game, we also wanted to talk a bit about how AI might impact, so how we think that this kind of tools could be useful to use, and also what are the precautions that we need to take into this space. So looking into this into the 10 most demand skills that were published by LinkedIn recently, we see that many of them are very soft, not very soft, but soft: communication, teamwork. These kind of skills are usually difficult to train at university because they require a lot of, small groups, one-to-one training. You always need to be there, providing feedback to the students and actually enabling them to truly develop. So we think that by designing AI that could actually serve as an expert, that could, feedback all the time information to the students and enable them to go about, communication and teamwork in a more efficient way, this could be an interesting venue. And also, we want to emphasize the fact that, yes, there are many opportunities that are brought by this technology, but also there is also this danger, but also an opportunity space related to the productive struggle that we usually have. So there is this saying that if it does not challenge you, it won't change you. So we know that, sometimes we need to, only when we put a lot of work into something, that translates into transforming us in some way. And of course, with this kind of tool, there will be this temptation of going very easily into just having an essay written in 1 second instead of spending 5 hours. So I think that, again, we need to be very mindful and creative into how we can design AI tools for this that can, instead of, providing an easy, fast solution, maybe be more patient and motivate students into, going through this struggle. And actually, before playing the video, I think that one of the points that Tom mentioned that we should talk about is evaluation. So how did we evaluate this project? So what happened in your case, if you can briefly describe?
Well, obviously one of the ethical concerns of using AI in education is how much of the work can the student really claim if they've been using AI tools to kind of cut corners, take out the skill and cognitive effort of a lot of tasks like coding, for instance. So we approached the project with a lot of caution surrounding that area. We wanted to make sure that we were as transparent as possible from the beginning, that we had the consent of our supervisors, that we were really kind of adhering to the proper academic standards. I think that's very important, especially considering when this project was worth so much of our grade. So the way that we kind of rationalized it was as a team of 2 developers. It was me and my other partner. We had quite limited experience with things like coding and games. It kind of allowed us to free up time to kind of produce a more polished project. And obviously, alongside the transparency, we collaborated quite closely with our supervisors and lecturers, and we came up with the idea that we would have to quantify the contribution, our original contribution versus what we did with AI. And I think we agreed on the figure about 80 to 85% was our own original effort. So I think in terms of the future and people using AI tools in students' work, I think it's on a case-by-case basis, whatever the lecturer agrees.
In our final year project for the Digital Arts course, we set out to create a cyberpunk-themed game using Unity. Game development encompasses many different tasks, including story, gameplay, level design, and sound. And in the industry, each of these aspects often warrants its own specialized team. However, as a mere team of 2 developers, we had a large workload ahead of us. During our planning phase, we observed the release of ChatGPT, a widely known AI tool already being used to streamline various tasks in other projects. This sparked an idea, and we proposed to our supervisor that we experiment with different AI tools to speed up aspects of our game's development. AI's role in academia is still evolving, and it does raise questions about the authenticity of students' work where it's involved. Fortunately, our supervisor was supportive and gave us the opportunity to explore this emerging field throughout our project. First of all, we called upon ChatGPT as a programming assistant, guiding us through the writing and debugging of code. This not only sped up development but aided us in the creation of complex features and puzzles. We input our goals into ChatGPT, which then generated the necessary scripts and instructions. And what's particularly helpful is ChatGPT's ability to explain each line of code in beginner-friendly terms, greatly improving our coding skills throughout the project. Consider the laser puzzle in the first level of our game, which required players to deactivate 5 lasers using just 4 buttons to ensure safe passage. Even with ChatGPT, this was a challenging problem to tackle. We had to break it down into smaller steps, assigning letters to the buttons and numbers to the lasers. We used ChatGPT to generate various button sequences that could be used to deactivate all of the lasers, and then wrote these combinations down. We then asked it to create a script that would manage the lasers on and off states, connecting them to the buttons and facilitating player interaction with these buttons. Our only limitation here was the scope of our language and our ability to explain the problem to ChatGPT. We used a similar approach with the other interactions in our game, freeing up valuable time to focus on other aspects, such as crafting environments, developing the storyline, and designing user interface elements. Another AI tool that played a big role in our project was Midjourney, an AI image generator. We provided it with specific prompts regarding the subject, art style, and dimension, and then it generated according sets of images. Early in the project, we used Midjourney as inspiration for characters and level design, helping us visualize our game's world. While it did require some trial and error with prompts, its potential was limited only by our language once again. As our project progressed, we found interesting ways to directly integrate Midjourney's art into our game. Given our cyberpunk theme, we wanted to portray a dystopian future controlled by corrupt corporations. To convey this, we designed propaganda-style billboards in the second level that highlighted the corporation's influence. Instead of painstakingly creating these billboards from scratch, we used Midjourney generated graphics as a foundation and customized these with text and image effects in Photoshop. A similar approach was taken in the third level, which features a gallery section, where we prompted Midjourney to generate images combining robots with modern art and Renaissance-era paintings. This approach granted us access to creative graphics that would have been challenging to produce from scratch within our project timeline. Our journey with AI tools wasn't without ethical considerations. Some of the images generated with Midjourney appear to bear watermarks resembling ones found in stock images. Midjourney's training process involves millions of images from various online sources, and the founder has acknowledged not obtaining consent from all of the artists and publishers of these images. That raises potential concerns about copyright infringements. Midjourney's terms and conditions state that a subscription to the service allows you to use the art, but it doesn't grant you copyright ownership. In our case, as our game wasn't for profit, we chose to use the images, although this doesn't entirely resolve the ethical questions, particularly regarding images trained on copyrighted material. In conclusion, while AI tools have proven valuable in enhancing productivity in various fields, including game development, they raise ethical questions and considerations that demand our attention. The issue of copyright and the evolving landscape of AI usage require our ongoing vigilance and adherence to transparent practices. Our supervisors even asked us to quantify the portion of work accomplished with AI assistance versus from scratch, and we estimated that around 80 to 85% was our original effort. We recommend exploring the full range of AI tools available, not only in game development, but also across various educational fields, as they can streamline complex processes and empower less experienced creators. Nevertheless, as technology evolves, continued awareness of evolving legislation regarding AI and a commitment to ethical usage is important.
If anyone's got a question, if you could just raise your hand and I'll come over before we jump to the next one.
Thank you so much for a really interesting talk. I just want to ask more details about quantification. If you could explain, how did you estimate quantified 80-85% was your generate?
So it was quite tough to work out because there's so many different game development kind of facets and stuff. There's so many different aspects. There's things like the sound, there's the level design, all of it. It's like comparing apples to oranges. So really it came down to the amount of time spent on specific things versus, like how much time would we have spent on this specific task of coding or producing the art. And obviously, again, even that's quite hard to quantify, but we probably spent a total of about 300 hours just on things like level design alone. So that's ultimately what it came down to, when it still can seem to some people like we plucked that figure of 80% out of thin air, but it was kind of on us to kind of justify, okay, we spent this much on designing this environment, making 3 levels of the game. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard, but thank you for answering.
Thank you.